Hi guys, welcome to another Flight Deck 2 Sim tutorial. Today we're going to talk about holding, and more specifically we're going to show you how to hold using the PMDG 737 NGX. Now we're simulating a flight today from Bremen in northern Germany all the way to London Stansted, and we're going to actually conduct some holding just to the east of Stansted at the initial approach fix before I fly the ILS onto the runway. Just before we get into the descent and approach, I'd like to give you some background information about holding. So you might be asking, what is a hold? Well, a holding pattern is a racetrack procedure over a defined holding fix. For example, it's usually over a beacon on the ground, something like a VOR or an NDB, but these days it might be over a specific waypoint, and these waypoints are usually based on a distance and radial off a VOR. Now when we approach a hold, we need to try and work out how we're going to enter it, and to enter a hold there's three ways, or three entry procedures. You have a direct entry, a parallel entry, and a teardrop entry. Depending on which angle you approach the beacon is how you enter the hold. Now the beauty of the 737-800 is it knows exactly what entry procedure to do. You don't even need to worry about it as a 737 airline pilot. The FMC just does it so long as you have LNAV engaged. A few more other things to think about with regards to holding then. Depending on your height, if you're above 14,000 feet, the outbound leg of the hold's a minute and a half. If you're below that, it's 1 minute. You can also specify a distance in the hold, so how long the inbound and outbound leg is. There's also certain speeds to fly. The FMC calculates the most efficient speed to fly. You've got to make sure it doesn't bust any of the ICAO limit speeds when doing that. So that's a bit of background information about the hold for you. I'm going to show you a lot more information in the hold later on as we descend into Stansted. And if you have any questions about holding, you can leave that in the comments section or find the information online. Well guys, welcome back. I've just initiated the descent into Stansted, and if I bring up the arrival chart, we're flying the ABBOT 1 Charlie arrival, and we're currently routing direct to Idacey, and you can see at Idacey we need to be at flight level 180. After Idacey it's direct to Lapra to be at flight level 120, and after Lapra it's direct to ABBOT, which is the initial approach fix into Stansted. If I bring up the FMC, you can see I've got the exact routing there. We'll select plan, bring up the MD, put it over here, and if I step through it you can see there's all the waypoints, Idacey, Lapra, and then ABBOT. Now if I zoom in, there you can see the initial approach fix. Now let's imagine we have contacted London Control and they've told us there is a delay in Stansted and we can expect a hold at ABBOT. So how do we put that information in the FMC? Well, the first thing you need to do is select hold. Alright, and that brings up a box here that says hold at, and you need to select the waypoint at which you'd like to hold. So in this case, ABBOT. So you can either line select key to get the text there, or physically type out ABBOT there and bring it up to the ABBOT page. And there you go, you can see the ABBOT hold has been inserted. Now it defaults to all the standard criteria, but we might need to edit it slightly. So you can see here on the chart, the ABBOT hold, the inbound course is 267 and it's a right hand turns, and it says 256 here. Now usually if it has it in the database you can update it automatically, but in this case we need to put it in manually. So I'll put 267 right hand turns. You can see how the whole direction is ever so slightly changed. And also if you look at the chart you can see the distance from Barkway VOR at ABBOT is 20 miles and the outbound leg is 26 miles, so that's a 6 mile leg there. So instead of doing a time we need to put a distance. So if I put 6 miles, there you go, you can see now all the information is in the hold, and all I simply need to do is execute, and there you go. If I go back to the legs page you can see the aircraft's going to go to Idacey, Lapra and ABBOT, and then hold at ABBOT. And you can see with the restrictions we should be at 6,000 feet 220 knots as per the arrival, and that's how you insert the hold. Now you can join me as we approach ABBOT and I'll explain to you all the information that's on the hold page in the FMC. So guys, welcome back. We're just approaching ABBOT, descending to 6,000 feet, and you can see I've reduced the speed to 220 knots. I'm just using vertical speed 1,000 feet per minute to make sure we're level at 6,000 feet just prior to ABBOT. Now, if you remember right at the start of the tutorial, I talked about the way we enter the hold. You might be able to see that as we approach ABBOT from the east, it's going to be a direct entry. So what the aircraft will do approaching ABBOT, it will initiate the right turn, go on the outbound leg, and it will fly for that distance we put in of 6 miles and then make a further right turn back to the hold at ABBOT. So what we'll do, we'll just wait until we get to ABBOT, then we'll talk about the information which you can have in the FMC. I'll bring that up now as well. So you can see here on the legs page, 0.6 miles to go, and there we go, we've now entered the hold. The aircraft is turning right overhead ABBOT, and if I go to the hold page, you can see it now says active hold, and that's because it's currently holding obviously at ABBOT. So let's talk about the information we now have in the FMC. You can see here, obviously at the top here we have ABBOT. Next you have something that says quad radial. That stands for quadrant radial. That's the where we're holding, so it's the east of the VOR and the outbound leg, which is 087. Next we have the inbound course and turn direction. So if you remember when we programmed this SID, the star, we put in 267 right hand turns. Leg time is blank, that's because we put the distance of 6 nautical miles here. Next you have your speed and target altitude information, so I'll put the FMC over here. You have the fix ETA, so when we're going to be overhead the fix, well that's obviously now, so 0559 Zulu. You have something called EFC time, that stands for expected further clearance time. So if ATC came back to us and said, flight deck to sim, you can expect your approach at 0610 Zulu, you can type that information there, and it helps compute, make a more efficient holding pattern. Next we have hold available. This is the amount of time we can hold at ABBOT until we are using our reserve fuel. That's the figure we put in pre-flight. And then lastly we have best speed, which is 214 knots. That's the most efficient speed the FMC's computed that we can fly whilst holding. And if you look here, you can see we're now on the outbound leg. The aircraft will continue outbound for a distance of 6 miles and then make a right turn to ABBOT. Now one thing I've noticed when practicing holding using the PMDG NGX, it sometimes doesn't follow the magenta line very accurately, sometimes it turns inside the magenta line. I don't know if that's a glitch with FSX or PMDG, but in reality guys, the aircraft follows the magenta line exactly. Alright, and that's it. You'd simply leave it in LNAV, you can re-engage VNAV. It doesn't make much difference if you're in altitude hold. Either way it's going to maintain 6,000 feet and continue holding at the speed restriction we put in the FMC. So then guys, the last thing I want to talk about is how to exit the hold. Well, there's several ways of doing it. So if I bring up the approach chart here, you can see after ABBOT on the approach arrival transition, there's a track of 267 onto the localizer and then onto the ILS. In reality, it's very similar to the track we'd get, but you'd get radar vectors in an airport like Stansted. You'd be under radar control. So in reality, they would come up to us and say, flight deck to sim, holdings cancelled, fly on a heading of say 270 degrees, radar vectors for the ILS approach. And all we simply do is put in 270 degrees and push heading select, and then you wouldn't actually have to use the exit hold function. Just simply go to legs and you'd bring an applicable waypoint to the top, in this case the center fix, and execute. That's one way of exiting the hold. Now if Stansted radar said to us, okay, flight deck to sim, after passing over the ABBOT fix you are cleared for the ILS approach, you would simply then go to the hold page, click exit hold, and this now puts it into the arm mode. All you have to do then is simply execute, which I won't do because I don't want to exit the hold, and all the aircraft will do is then route direct to ABBOT and then follow the magenta line onto the ILS. So they're the two ways we exit the hold. So then guys, that's it. That's how we use the holding feature of the FMC and how we hold in real life using the PMDG 737 NGX. I hope you found that interesting and learned something new. As ever, if you have any questions, feel free to leave that in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Fly safe, and I'll see you for another flight deck to sim tutorial in the very near future. Take care, and bye bye.